What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strydent, and I'm back with another video, of course. And today I just want to get kind of random. I tend to do this often. I just want to update you guys. I got some reviews coming. I've got a lot of Masters of the Universe reviews. I picked up one of the Funko uh, Game of Thrones Legacy figures. I've got a couple Arrow figures. Um, I've got a couple more common riders. I'm getting close to the end of my 13 riders from Ryuki, and I've got Axle Mode Fies, and there's something else somewhere that's old. Oh, GI Joe stuff. I've been looking at my Joes, and I'm going to start back doing reviews on some of them. A short is almost done, and this is kind of a little. I don't know, just like a little morsel to get you guys, keep you guys on board and interested. But yeah, that's just some of the stuff that's coming. And then, I just want to kind of bring some points up so that we can geek out about them. So here we go. Okay, first off, we'll talk about Joes and we'll talk about customs in general. But I especially want to focus on G.I. Joe. I am one of those people who is hardcore G.I. Joe. I've read a lot of the comics. I've watched a lot of I've watched all the cartoons actually. I own a lot of figures, and I don't like the movies so much. I mean, there's things in the first movie that work in the world of G.I. Joe, and it's cool to assimilate those things, but there's a lot of things in the movie that don't fit because they are taking their cues from other franchises that we don't need to assimilate into the Joe-verse. That being said, when you collect, you can do whatever you want with your Joe-verse. It doesn't mean that it fits, like G.I. Joe, as G.I. Joe is, it fits for your individual Joe-verse. But like a lot of times I see customs that I'm just like, really? You had to put that into G.I. Joe? It doesn't even make sense, you know? Every time I go on his tank, I'm bombarded with characters that just don't fit in the Joe verse. It's like they're doing them just to do them. And I get it. If you have skills and the time, you do whatever the fuck you want to do. But I'm kind of getting tired of seeing Joes that have been turned into regular soldiers, and then seeing characters from like Capcom and from Masters of the Universe and shit in GI Joe, like kind of forced into the Joe verse. That's just dumb. That's almost as bad as when the companies themselves give us characters that just don't fit whatever the themes are of whatever the line may be. In this case, it's G.I. Joe. It was bad enough when they force fed us Ninja Force, and there are ninjas in G.I. Joe, but like they didn't quite fit because ninjas are not the focus. This is one area of the Joe-verse. You shouldn't have made an entire line that only focused on that, because it's not like they made a Stealth Force. I mean, they made Night Force, but Night Force had soldiers from all, walks of the Joe-verse. But I don't like that. And I don't know, maybe it's me just being an old man. I'm not that old, but it's my old man approach where I'm just like, this is how it should be, this is how it is. No. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't dig that. It bothers me. It's like if you were playing with He-Man and you somehow put, I don't know, Power Rangers in your He-Man universe. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't fit. Or you're playing with, it's like what they're doing with Arrow, the TV show. Arrow is the Green Arrow, number one, he's the Green Arrow. He's a separate character. The Arrow is an old, I think, Charleston Comics character, which I'm pretty sure DC owns now. I could be wrong. This is me just throwing shit out off the top of my head. I know Arrow is a separate figure because what reminded me is that Shocker Toys is doing figures of some of these old Charleston Comics and other, companies, old ass 1940s, 1930s characters, or 40s and 50s characters. And the Arrow is one of them. So is the Dan Garrett version of the Blue Beetle. They're going back in the day and they're snatching up old characters, the Phantom, which I'm looking forward to, and they're all precursors to characters that we all know and love. Arrow is not Batman. So to constantly make him do all these things that Batman does, and to take Batman plot points and switch it with with the Green Arrow or the Arrow, it's just lame. You know, the last episode or second to last episode, Ra's al Ghul, which has no business being in a Green Arrow show, but Ra's al Ghul shows up and says, "I want you to be the next Ra's al Ghul." Didn't we already do this in Batman the Animated Series? Don't enough people understand and know that this doesn't fit in that world? That's the same kind of foolishness when you have freaking, I don't know, Kashern in the G.I. Joe universe. There's not enough cyborgs for Kashern to destroy. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just throw him. You can, but it doesn't make sense, I guess is what I'm saying. So yeah, that's one of my little dumb rants. You know, I tend to rant about this stuff because, you know, everything with all these fan appreciation sites, it's like excess. You know, there's so much stuff being made, so much stuff being done, all with G.I. Joe, but it doesn't all actually relate to G.I. Joe. But people are so used to this, they're like, oh my god, that's awesome. Yes, the fact that you were able to make a custom of this character is awesome. But the fact that you go out of your way to make him part of the Joe-verse when there's no way it could work, that's just weird. Or like, and I'm not saying like, dumb down your imagination, you know what I mean? No, don't dumb down your imagination, but just find a way to, you know, thematically think about how these things would actually play with one another. Don't just put shit in there because you can. I mean, when it's your personal Joe-verse, obviously while you're playing by yourself, that's fine. It's your stuff. But, you know, when you're talking to fans of G.I. Joe, and I guess this kind of doesn't really, I don't know, it's like a pet peeve of mine because the people at large seem to dig it and they don't complain, you know? They don't have anything against this, but I do. I don't know. I tend to have a little bit of a different outlook on these things because when we turn around and complain to the companies that make our favorite figures or whatever, we want them to have a overarching knowledge of what works and what fits within the confines of this particular line. I don't want superheroes in my G.I. Joe, you know, universe. You know, when I say superheroes, I don't want like Superman to show up and fix everything, because if there's a Superman in G.I. Joe, then there's no need for the Joes. Do you feel me? Same thing with Batman. I don't want Batman in my G.I. Joe, because if Batman exists, then I don't need all the Joes, because Batman can do everything those guys all specialize in. Feel me? But, you know, whenever we're on these G.I. Joe fan sites, everybody's finding ways to throw Hellboy and Batman and Tony Stark and, you know, the Avengers and the X-Men and the Justice League and the blah, blah, blah. And it's like, guys, stop. Those are separate. Let them do their things separately. You don't have to throw them all together. You know, it's kind of issues that we have in comics. In comics, they want, like Marvel has S.H.I.E.L.D., but then you have the Avengers and you have all these other characters, and then you want to try and separate their worlds, even though the worlds actually intersect often. To me, it's kind of whack that you want us to believe that Nick Fury and his people can actually do things to put them on par with like Thor and all those other people. Like, it's bad writing. Let them deal with certain things that the superheroes with certain powers are just kind of too busy to deal with. Then it would make sense that they coexist and one group existed since before the other. Don't constantly try to put Nick Fury and his people on par with characters that there's no way they could be on par with. But, as you've seen with comics like Original Sin and other stuff, they constantly do shit to try and put the regular characters on par with all the superheroic characters. And I think it's bad writing, it's bad visualization, it's bad logic. It doesn't make sense, you know? Nick Fury can't fight the Hulk, you know? I don't care what gadget you have, you just can't fight the Hulk. But they'll give him a magic gadget that will put him on par with the Hulk so that he just doesn't die, you know? Nick Fury couldn't beat Captain America. So what did they do? They make Nick Fury a super soldier too, you know? Which, you know, I know they did that in the past, but I'm just saying, like, these are things they did so that he would be interesting. But it's like, if you really think about it, if this is who he is, why did you need Captain America? Why couldn't he have gone on a lot of the missions that they ended up using Cap for? Ultimates made sense of that, or Ultimate, you know, the Ultimate Universe version of Nick Fury made sense of a lot of that stuff, but then it turned around and dropped the ball by being all strange. You know, with that weird wrap up that they did that just shat all over the ultimate continuity. But I don't know. This is just something to think about. You know, something you guys we can go back and forth about and try to figure this out in the comments if you want. But it's just a thought. You know, I don't want Final Fantasy people in my Joe verse. It's my Joe verse. I want hardened soldiers and, you know, evil terrorists and mercenaries and, you know, megalomaniacs and stuff. You know, almost super villains. But I don't want Magneto and fucking, you know, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, because how the fuck would G.I. Joe deal with them? You know what I mean? I don't want the Punisher in there, because the Punisher is like the Joes kind of on steroids, because he deals with all manner of criminal, from, you know, the regular gun-toting fool to like super criminals, you know? So I don't want him in the Joe verse, because he would one up everyone, including Snake Eyes. So it's just one of those things. I prefer keeping those things separate. That's why if you see my Joe verse, I made crazy things happen, but it's still in the realm of G.I. Joe. You know, like Contra, it's soldiers doing things that are crazy, you know, like on another level. It's not superheroes. It's soldiers doing superheroic stuff, not superheroes with superpowers coming in and doing superheroic stuff. Does that make sense? I hope so. So yeah, I wish that people would keep that in mind. Customs are fun, customs are cool, and some people do awesome work, but sometimes I wish they would keep things in perspective so that we could more enjoy what they do. And this is my personal feeling. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but you know, whatever you feel, sound off in the comments if you feel like it. Yeah, so that's that. Next up, so Hideo Kojima supposedly is not coming back to Konami. He's leaving Konami, and he won't be working for them after Metal Gear 5. And it's weird because he's always talked about wanting to do other things, but I didn't think he was ever going to be leaving, you know, Konami anytime soon. And apparently, there's a lot of craziness going on at Konami, and I mean, he was locked out of their email, you know, their whole system. It's like, I don't know if it's restructuring. I mean, it just sounds like some shady shit, like some like hostile takeover type shit, where they jump in, new people come in, and they're just like, shit, we can do better. Get him out of here. We're going to do this. Because, you know, he has a lot of pull, or he had a lot of pull. So apparently that's all a thing of the past. So bye-bye, Konami. I know that when whatever he makes with whatever company he joins or starts once he leaves Konami, he's going to kill Konami, because Konami really hasn't had that much outside of Metal Gear that they could, like, you know, they haven't really done many things with Contra. All the Contras have been different since fucking Contra Hardcore. And none of them have really had the true Contra vibe. This new one, the Rise of the, what was it called? The Hardcore Uprising, I think is what it was called. The one done by Arc Systems. It looked beautiful, but it didn't feel like Contra. So I really don't know what they're thinking in getting rid of Kojima. That's just kind of dumb. You know what I mean? Like, that's like the Bulls in the 90s getting rid of Jordan at the height of his popularity. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the height of his skills. So it just doesn't make sense to me. So good luck with them. I'm looking forward to whatever it is Kojima will make, because hopefully it won't have whatever restrictions Konami put in place with him working on Metal Gear. Because I'm pretty sure they said these kind of things have to always be so that it will be a Metal Gear game. Now he can make a story that's even more hardcore than Metal Gear, and maybe not as convoluted. But, you know, that's something else that's going on. Also, I just finished watching Batman versus Robin. It was actually a little bit surprising. It was a lot better than. Excuse me, I'm sorry, it's late. It was a lot better than Son of Batman, which, you know, a lot of things are. You know, shit with corn in it is better than Batman versus Robin. Diarrhea is better than Batman. Than Son of Batman. I'm sorry. But this one was actually a lot better. Jay Oliver directed by himself. They didn't have the co-directing of you know, Ethan Spalding or whatever. The writing this time was a lot better. It was more story. It still kind of was, you know, one note because, you know, there's some things that always happen, and this is why I always get mad when, well, I usually get mad when I talk to people and they say, "Oh, that was a good movie. That was a great movie." Guys, listen, because you enjoyed it doesn't make it great. I enjoy B movies a lot of times, and you know, they're B movies. So even though I enjoyed watching it, it's still not the greatest, you know, film. When they're not the greatest films when they're finished. You know, when all is said and done, it's still a B movie. This movie, it suffered from the same problems that, you know, stories like Hush, you know, the kind of fan service stories kind of fall into. The big thing here is that anytime there's a new character added into the Batman mythos or into the story that deals with Batman, that character tends to be a villain. So when they have masked villains and you're supposed to be surprised and you're supposed to be thrown for a loop, if it's, you know, your mind should already be in detective mode because it's a Batman story. If you're more intelligent than, you know, maybe a 5-year-old, then you'll figure out quickly that like all the new players are part of the evil whatever. You know, in Hush, they brought up Tommy Elliott, and then Tommy Elliott turned out to be Hush. And it's like, yeah, he's the only person who you've never seen before. In this movie, Samantha, the chick that Bruce is banging, she obviously was part of the Court of Owls. So it wasn't a surprise when they were like, hey, guess what? The leader of the Court of Owls, that's Samantha pretending to be a dude because her father was the Grand Master of the Court of Owls. Shit like that just, it bugs me because it's like, ooh, anticlimactic. Um, the plot here is that, you know, Damien's still being a little twat and complaining and, you know, wanting to be free, you know, uh, from the ramifications of his actions during Son of Batman. And he kept, you know, breaking out of the Batcave and running around killing folks and stuff. And, you know, Batman's not playing that shit. So he's locking him up. And he's not allowing him to go free and run around and roam as he pleases. So Damien's still pissed off about that. And, you know, once again, what did you expect? And this is another reason why I can't stand this character, because he makes Batman he makes Batman act out of character, you know, and I guess that's the point because he's his son more so than any of the other Robins. To me, it's bogus because, you know, he adopts all of them, so they're all his kids essentially, and you know everybody else says it, everybody else treats them as such, and then he doesn't, and it's until he gets his own child that he starts to recognize that he's been adopting these children and kind of putting them out there in harm's way and blah blah blah. So I don't know, it just feels kind of cheap, and it kind of lessens the relationships that we've come to know for, you know, the mainstream Batman and Bat family. And I don't like that. And for people who say they're fans of the Bat family but they don't see any problems with this, I don't know what to tell you. It seems like you're fans of the idea but not fans of the actual execution. And, you know, when we talk about the execution of it, you guys are thinking more along the lines of the idea. And I don't know, that takes away from the overall, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? The success, the overall success, possible success of how they do stuff, or the failure of how they do stuff, because you guys aren't really paying attention to how it's done. You're just paying attention to the fact that it exists. Um, so, you know, in this movie, you have the same issues I've always had. Court of Owls, except now they made them like a bedtime story, and Bruce always suspected that they existed, but, you know, early on in his career, shortly after his parents were killed, he tried to search for them, couldn't find them, so he gave up on them. Now they show up again just out of the blue, focused on taking him down for some odd reason, specifically him. Um, you find out that the Court of Owls is made up of the elite in Gotham, and their, bloodlines. So they've been around for a long time, and the grandfathers, the fathers, and now the, children are the new. They're making up the new body of the Court of Owls, and they want Bruce Wayne to be part of that. Of course, Bruce Wayne is like, hell no, I'm not going to be part of that shit. So it causes problems. Meanwhile, uh, Talon, I was trying to remember his name. It's Calvin Rose, I think it is. He shows up to kind of see Robin having problems not killing. He kind of feels like, you know, certain types of people don't deserve, the life. They're taking life for granted. They're, preying on other people, so they deserve to be killed. And he's trying to, kind of see if Robin is going to go for that, because if so, that means he could use him. In the end, all this beef between Batman and Robin kind of escalates, and it pushes Robin, being the idiot that he is, to join the Court of Owls, or to try to. And when he starts having second thoughts, it's too late. They've already taken over. So Batman has to kind of fight the Court of Owls by himself, or with the help of, I say by himself, but he has Nightwing on his side. So he fights the Court of Owls with Nightwing and Alfred. And most of the events follow what you've already known from the book. I'm not going to go too much into detail. I'll just say the Berserker suit, or the Thrasher suit as it's called in the comics, makes an appearance. We get a rematch between, like an actual fight between Dick and Damian, which they still keep trying to make Damian win it, which I'm just not buying it. I don't care whose father, whose son he is, or who his father is. It doesn't make a difference. He's not Batman. So he, being 10 years old, there's no way he's going to get the better of, 20 or 30-year-old Dick Grayson as Nightwing. That's just bullshit. I'm tired of seeing that, and they need to get over that shit. Yeah, he was willing to kill, but it doesn't mean that he's strong enough to just take down someone like Dick, who's got, at least 15 years experience over this kid, or 20 years experience if he's in his 30s. If he's in his 30s, I don't think he is, but I always picture, Batman kind of like 40s, maybe even 50s. Maybe in this, he's probably in his 40s, so Dick is probably in his late 20s. Either way, he's got years over Damian, so there's no way that 10 years, 10-year-old Damian is going to be able to floor him the way he does. Matter of fact, they go so far as to have Damian get the better of Batman for the most part. I mean, that Batman's holding back, but it's like you see him take hits that would have ended the fight for guys twice, 10 times Damian's size, but then they keep making Damian continue because he's Batman's son. I'm just sick of that shit, man. It's just annoying to see that that's the way they rationalize Damian being able to do what he does. If he's fighting normal thugs, okay, fine, I'll give him that. He's got more skills than they do, because Tim in the animated series was like 12 or 13 or something like that, or maybe even 11. I can't remember, but he was little, and he was getting the better of giant guys too, and it's because he knew what to do. This here, it's not just because he knows what to do. They go so far as to make, the effect, and make him fight people that are so much better than him. He's getting the better of them just because, and it just doesn't work for me. But I will say the choreography in this is way better, and it's Jay Oliver who directed, the Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2. So he understands combat. He also directed, he co-directed Flashpoint. So he's got skills. That him and his team understand, combat. There's even some Ong Bak in there. I was kind of surprised. Towards the end, you see it when Batman squares off with Calvin. It's overall, though, it is more entertaining than Son of Batman. There aren't those cringe-worthy moments where you're just like, ew, really? Like when Talia propositions Batman right in front of her son. You don't have any of those moments. This is a lot more consistent. Um, You know, there's a lot more of Batman snooping around and Robin snooping around. There's a lot more genuinely kind of creepy moments, at least in the very beginning there is. Um, it's just overall more entertaining. So if you're looking for something, you know, Batman related, New 52 related, I don't even know if this is considered New 52 because he's not really wearing the New 52 costume, although he is wearing, both of them are wearing their costume, or Batman's wearing his costume similar to the one you've seen in Throne of Atlantis and Justice League War. So I guess it is the New 52 version. Um, but I liked the action and I enjoyed it. At least I could enjoy the action on this time. The story is still kind of, you know, but if I was talking to ODC, that's me, a while back, and we I came to the conclusion because he pointed out that, you know, the New 52 Batman is so much younger than the, you know, the DC Universe Prime version, and there are things he doesn't know. So the Court of Owls could get the drop on him because he doesn't know everything, or he's not even that. You know, he's aware of a lot, but he's still in the process of getting all that information that he will have when he hits, you know, a few more years of, you know, being Batman. So it's possible that a young Batman could, you know, kind of be caught off guard by the Court of Owls. And, you know, when I think of it that way, then the whole thing makes sense and I have less problems with it. But, you know, in this, things just are so coincidental. Like I said, the only new people being introduced happen to be the villains. Um, I don't know. It just feels very thin. And, you know, some people will dig it. Most people will dig it because it's Batman. So, you know, God forbid we actually, you know, put him under the microscope as the detective is supposed to do. Um, but, you know, a billion people are going to watch this and say it's amazing and it's the greatest thing. And I'm going to get a shitload of hate in the comments because I actually thought, while, you know, used my brain while I was watching the film. And, you know, I saw things that didn't make sense to me or just didn't make sense in the grand scheme of things, you know, based on what I've already been told. But, you know, whatever. That's why I do this, and a lot of you guys don't. So for those of you who want to listen, that's my 2 cents. It's an okay movie, entertaining. Watch it, kill some time. Don't think too hard about it, because as soon as you start thinking about it, you're going to see all the flaws, and then it's going to be like, wow, doesn't quite make as much sense. You know, Damien is still Trill, so everything he does just has the Batman effect, even though he's not Batman. Um, the Court of Owls is able to conveniently get the drop on Batman every time. Um, it's just, I don't know. Like I said, a lot of coincidences and a lot of things that just, for me, they don't necessarily work as well. But, you know, like I said, if you want the good stuff, you watch everything pre Justice League War. If you want to see just some action with some, you know, paper thin plots, then jump into everything after, you know, Flashpoint Paradox, and you'll be fine from Justice League War on. And you will totally enjoy yourself because you're obviously not looking for anything deep. Um, and you know, you have like 5 or 6 movies, four or five movies. I mean, the rest you've got like 20 years worth of animation. So I don't know. It's all up to you. But yeah, that's it for me as far as that goes. And that's about it for this random video. I hope I gave you guys enough. Stay tuned for more videos and cool stuff and random ramblings and, you know, all the stuff you've come to expect from me. You've been great. Peace outside.